I believe I'm recording. I better just check. Looks like it. Okay. Comments and such. So, somebody called CBR, apparently on a Ken Wheeler video. I find your criticism unconvincing. Oh, who cares? I mean, you have to be somebody, for somebody to care that you say, I don't like you. Should I take that seriously if somebody says, I don't like you? I don't like the way you look. I should take it seriously? Yeah. Why? Mockery is not proof. I mean, it's hilarious. Considering how much mockery Ken Wheeler uses in his critiques. He never deals with an experiment, never deals with complete statements. His paraphrases of what they think or what they say are completely inaccurate. I mean, I think you're a duplicitous hypocrite. Okay, now you can not care, but frankly, I, 10 years of being on the internet, I have a certain accountability that you don't have. My opinions just can't be erroneous rubbish or I'm easily made fool of. So, maybe you should take my opinion seriously. I think you lack integrity in terms of your capacity to express yourself and explain anything and to state anything that could mean anything to an intelligent person. You ought to fix that. Alright. Kenneth Reynolds. Maybe we'll read this. It's the ferrocell stuff. Ferrocells are neat. They are at best magnetic analogs. I wouldn't even call them anything to do with magnets. I mean, it's all about the stupid little ferrofluid bits and the fact that they reflect light. And that's the gimmick here. They're really little mirrors, and they play little light games. And the connection to the magnetism is so distant as to almost not be appropriate to blame the magnet. Anyway, to a hall of mirrors. Magnetic illusions complete with many distorted mirrors. Yeah, it's not really a distortion in the sense that it's so nice and mechanical. But yeah, that's the problem. It's a mechanical function and people don't really want to know how something works. Here's a simple experiment. Step 1, take 2 cube magnets. I don't know if we need all this. You do a few things and you'll figure out that there's nothing to see here. So you leave one light and you move a magnet around and then you move around and you'll see that the light's just going with you. It's moving with you. And what you're seeing is refractions. You're seeing reflections and refractions through glass, and that's all you're seeing. Notice the bands of light move with respect to the magnet in step 3 and 4. Hint, neither magnetic field lines nor magnetic equal potentials change their position. I don't know what equal potentials are. With respect to an isolated magnet's position in space, your position in space, nor the light source position in space. Clearly, the light reflects at different places depending on where you're standing. You'll get reflections off different little bits. So it will appear as if the position of the stuff is moving when all that's changing is what your angle of refraction is. If it's not already obvious, the light line in the ferrocell through affected by magnets. The light line in the ferrocell, though affected by magnets, do not represent any magnetic field lines. They don't accurately represent them. And they're not field lines. As I'm pointing out, under a microscope you see no lines. You see rays. Okay? It becomes quite obvious that the smaller the bits you use, the more you'll see that the little bits are essentially lining up, especially with the point of the head of the magnet. They're just, because the way you place you can't place well, somebody has done it. They made a ferrocell with a hole in it, so you can get the dipole effect. but you can't get the dipole effect because you're putting one pole underneath or on top, usually. Or putting the magnet on sideways, which just creates another distorted pattern. You're not reflecting the field very well in terms of the alignment of the little bits, because they tend to be radial. So it's not lines that you're seeing the, well, I've already explained it. The light's reflecting, if spokes on a wheel, the light's reflecting on a different spoke as you go further out, and that's what's causing the curve in the line. But there is no actual curve. Nothing's curved. The lines are all perfectly straight. The spokes on the tires are perfectly straight. It's only because of the way the light's reflecting that you're getting the illusion of a curved line. Anyway, I would hardly characterize ferrocells' many light-sourced spectral, spiral illusions as what actually is going on. Right, so as long as the more light you put in, you're just confusing it. So you're just creating more and more lines on top of each other, more and more reflections, and so you lose understanding of what the effect is being caused by, which is the LEDs. They are more like magic tricks that fool the observer into believing something is not true. Right, well they shouldn't fool a scientist, and that's really the whole point, right? So if any of these people had any integrity as observers and reporters of truth, it's pretty, like I said, I didn't have to go through too much work. I mean, it takes some time because I didn't have a ferrocell to play with, so I had to get ferrofluid and I had to play around with it a little bit to get the idea. But anybody who's played with it knows what's really happening and why they are compelled to not provide that information to the public they're deceiving. That's the question you have to ask. Why are all these people talking about the ferrocell when they know, oh yeah, it's this one little line, curved line. You get an arced line from the LED. That's what you get as a reflection. Anyway, so Holiday says, cheers, DS. Definitely remiss of me to forget the inclined plane. I think that is the first simple machine. Well, I'm just saying, the inclined plane isn't exactly, it's a similar principle, but it's not exactly the same principle. But the point is me bringing it up is that it creates an analogy where it makes it obvious why there's advantage and why you have an advantage, because you're allowed to take more time to complete the distance, the upward distance. You can go take more sideways time to do this. And there's much intuitive insight to be got there, but I am not sure you've solved my problem of answering why scenario. Well, I think I did, and so this is just, but it's more Holiday's, nothing's ever satisfactory to his standards. So I write, distance is time and time is distance. Just pointing out that that's all this is about. If you can make this motion into something 4 times that motion, then the amount of work you have to do per square inch is less, because you're doing it over a longer period of time. So the fact is, if I can lift 10 pounds easily, and I can turn a 100-pound load into 10-pound lifts, then I can lift 100 pounds, which I couldn't lift before. Anyway, moving a force over more distance equals less force required per unit distance. I mean, I'm saying it very concisely, as in few words as possible. But I mean, I think that basically says it. By taking more time, you're using more distance, or by using more distance, it takes you more time. But that's the real point. The point is you're changing a job. How fast you're doing it is essentially what you're doing. And by doing it slower, you have to do less work per unit of time. All right. Robert Ritchie says, I agree that time is formed by motion. I'm not sure, but I think this guy emailed me. Kind of wacky email. I have to check. Sorry if you weren't the wacky guy who emailed me. No, you're the wacky guy. So, anyway, DraftScience, I agree that time is formed by motion. There is something much larger afoot, though, says you, akin to the differential over the integral. Well, that's just gibberish, not hypertrochoidal BS. Well, certainly not, but you seem to be a... So, I don't want to read his email necessarily, but he wanted to have an email correspondence, which I definitely don't have any interest in. And he thinks he's going to give me some insight by, the work of Walter Russell and J.C. Maxwell. Well, I mean, Maxwell was an etherist, but clearly he was a good scientist, and he knew he couldn't make his ether work. He sort of accepted the Michelson-Morley results, even though they're garbage. So, I mean, his mathematics doesn't have a wave in it. I mean, it doesn't have ether in it. He would have made an ether variable if he wanted to be a cheater. But he knew he didn't. There's nothing to do with it. So I'm just saying, I mean, I have nothing against Maxwell's math in the sense of taking a bunch of equations and figuring out how they're all talking about the same force to an extent. I mean, Maxwell turned like 4 forces into 2 forces. What he should have done is turned into 1 force. Okay, so that's sort of what he did. He took a bunch of electric theory and magnetic theory equations and smashed them together, but he still left them magnetic and electric when he should have just made them one thing. I mean, the whole B field, E field thing is just crap. And the only thing that matters is dipole versus monopole. And that was one of the premises of Maxwell, is there's no magnetic monopoles, when clearly electrons and protons are the magnetic monopoles. Just clearly. All right. And so, yeah, you're not going to, I know who Walter Russell is, and I know who J.C. Maxwell, John Clark Maxwell is. So I really don't need this, crap. I already have a theory of magnetism. I don't know whether you know that, but I already have one. I don't need one. Not interested. Actually, what Ken's, I mean, if you want to have a conversation in the room and try to explain to me why I got to change my theory because somehow it's missing something, fine. But I have no real interest in exchanging 43 emails trying to, agree on appropriate semantics. Actually, superior mind, this probably is just going to be a joke. Actually, what Ken's saying is quite simple. He just means that the dielectric erectile contraction ether dilates anal vortex vacuum. Yes, okay, so it's a joke. Okay, thank you. As I've pointed out before, I don't really have much of a sense of humor. Unless something horrible is happening to people who deserve it, then I seem to be able to find some sense of humor. All right, Johnny T. Doe, ice at Stonehenge. I bet you're right. Well, I wouldn't bet very much. But anyway, forces in space, stuff. Yeah. Oh, you don't like stuff versus nothing. Something versus nothing. The field, you haven't heard the word field before? A field of soldiers, a field of corn, a field of army ants. You can't get the concept? Aren't you creating... So this is, the name is Take It in the Balls. So, probably the cowboy. Aren't you creating fiction? I mean, everything is a fiction in the sense that you're proposing a theory. Now, I would argue that Darwin's fiction is a, non-fiction. But I would say Einstein's fiction is fiction. Just make it up as you go. No, it has to fit the evidence, retard. And that's what my theory actually does. It unifies physics. It takes two incompatible ideas, bent space and virtual photons, and gets rid of all their incompatibility, asshole. How about only discussing what's there physically, and not in your mind? Well, I don't know what video. Can you point to the video where I'm not pointing out that this is what I'm claiming is the physical description? And why don't you give me your physical description? What's your physical description of how bent space works? How does it suck space? And how does the virtual photon create attraction and repulsion? Why don't you explain those things? That's exactly what Getty means. I don't care what he means. Again, I've pointed out before, I'm perfectly comfortable with most of his critiques of conventional physics. Although he cheats, he mocks Einstein, he makes him spin in circles and do silly things. And sometimes he completely misparaphrases, and I think it's a grotesque misparaphrase for any idiot to say conventional physics is a particle model. Why don't you show me one physicist who draws a photon as a particle, that represents it in a book as a particle? Why don't you show me one book reference, one video by any physicist arguing that the photon is something other than this dopey, wavy thing. And then you can call it particle physics. But until then, it's just lying to say they have a particle theory. They don't have a particle theory. For fuck's sake. He's this thing of creating a field. Well, again, the thing of creating a field, the point is that it represents the fact that there is something affecting things based on their location. The further away you are, the less you're affected. The closer you are, the more you're affected. I mean, that's a real concept, idiot. And again, as I pointed out in the video, they're just describing effects. They're not describing causes. You don't understand the difference between a cause and an effect. If you're willing to make up a field, yes, of course they're willing to do that. That's what they've done forever, is make up a field. Now, what do you have? Why don't you tell me what you're making up? Ropes? You think Bill Gates' ropes are real? You don't think you're just making that up? You don't think there's something like absolutely zero evidence that any ropes exist? Then by all means go ahead and make up an angel. A rope angel? Because it's as valid as a field or the flux of the force. Well, I never use the word flux except in response to somebody who says the word. I have no use for the word. And as I've pointed out, the field I'm talking about is like a field of bullets. It's a very real force. It's a very real thing. And you are more likely to get hit by a bullet if you're close than if you're far away. You can't figure that out? So I'm not cheating the word field any. I'm not claiming anything happens for no reason. I'm giving you exact reasons that actual force, actual mechanical bits move through space at a speed, and they transmit the force by hitting things. I would rather call them angels than fields. So again, where in the video did I defend the concept of fields without a cause? I was merely pointing out that, as conventional science is known to do, they don't give a shit about causes, and they're just describing the effects of the force. And clearly the force affects things as if it was a field of soldiers, as if it was a field of rays. And they're conceding that truth. Idiot. Oh, God. These people are so dumb. Are you sure you have the capacity to deal with the subject matter? Fuck you. Useless gibberish. No frequency? Yeah, oh, you can't understand how a thing, bullets traveling through space, you can shoot them 1 second perfect intervals. Or you could shoot one, and then one in a second, and then 1.5 seconds, and then 1 in 2 seconds, and then 1 in 4 seconds, that you could send the bullets without a frequency. And if they don't have a consistent frequency, well, then they can't vibrate the electron, the way you need to. So again, we're back to a tipping point argument. You can't understand how tipping works, that you have to, like say if you were throwing baseballs and you wanted to knock a stump over, and all you had was baseballs to throw at it. You could understand that, yeah, you got to throw your baseball at the right time so you keep hitting it when it's moving away from you, so you can keep adding more and more energy to the stump so you can knock it over. There's rules, idiot. You can't understand those simple frickin' kinetic rules? You don't know what resonance is? Dumbass? Is there such a thing? Well, you could argue the microwave background radiation, which is a whole spectrum of radiation, could certainly contain elements that were not in a form we have a transmitter that can receive, a receiver that can receive. You can't figure that out either? Why don't you explain how jamming works, for example? The two radio signals come into an antenna out of phase, and that the antenna can't receive them. How would you fix that problem? If you don't think that's a real thing that happens in the world, where we can't see something unless we can create an instrument, a tool that can pick it up. It took Hertz 7 years to develop a machine to hear something as simple as a radio wave. Idiot. Let's see. Clever, question mark. Come up with the idea. Yeah, I already did. The force has two forces, question mark. Yeah. Oh, you mean particles have two charges? How silly is that? How could charge have two elements to it, plus and minus? No, that's crazy talk. I mean, do you think at all before you type this idiotic just gibberish? I mean, you're just making my point for me, so I guess, you know, you're sort of being helpful. You're just pointing out how dull and stupid the critics are. Contribution to mankind? Well, yes, a unification theory would be a substantial contribution. Why don't you go to Hothliday's video, okay, where he said I would get a Nobel Prize for just proving that the radar experiment is completely wrongly premised. So why don't you go comment on his video? Are you kidding me? Question mark? I mean, you know, rhetorical questions. I'll answer your questions. I mean, do you really, you know, how despicable a human are you? I mean, you obviously don't read what you're rhetorically typing, but I mean, you can't figure out, like I said, the simple thing like, oh, it's silly to talk about force having two elements, two characters, like a proton, like an electron, having a plus and a minus element. That's too preposterously complex an idea for you, even though you know electrons and protons exist. Are you okay? Particle force? Yeah, it was suggested 350 years ago, and it's now called Mach gravity because it works so well. Because it works so well. Because it fits perfectly. Because it creates, essentially. It gives you a creator for the inverse square law. Dumbass. Positive energy, question mark? I don't know. This is negative energy, question mark? Negative energy? A negative baseball? I throw it and the thing comes towards me. You fabricated quite a lot of pure fiction here. Well, you haven't paraphrased any of it. You certainly haven't quoted any of it. And I've certainly just debunked everything you've just said as being silly as complaints. I mean, they're just so stupid as complaints. Care to write the next Star Trek? Whatever. Or how about, like I said, I'm not the one living in that fantasy world of your neutrinos. How about the next Harry Potter? You certainly have the talent. Yeah, whatever. You have no talent. You're an imbecile. And an asshole. I'm out of here. This is as bad as it gets. Oh, you're a scared chicken. Chicken, why don't you come into the room, okay? All you need is a working mic, and we'll see what you know. We'll see what your knowledge is, and we'll see what you can defend. as a rational statement, you fucking little putz. You little shit talker. Ugh, pathetic. Alright, so I guess my job is done once again. Let's see, I don't think there'll be anything new. There really never is anything worth listening to. I really don't like this Andrew Dotson guy. He's getting into like whatever. He's quantum color chromography or some other kind of silly specialty. You know, he's some sort of graduate student. But I have to say, it did charm me a bit because he's got a cat. It's like Santino. I miss Santino. Little Santino cat. Anyway, yeah, so I couldn't cut him off the subscription list because the cat. Couldn't watch the video because it's just too depressing. But anyway, anything else to do? I don't think there is anything. Ken Wheeler's off to Florida, thank goodness. So a few less videos. He's just begging for money 2 weeks ago. Now he's off to, oh, I gotta have this stuff and blah 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 blah. The Scientific Lee guy is begging for some money for a high-speed camera, which are getting cheaper all the time. So this must be the new version of them now. So you don't need any liquid hydrogen to cool it or any kind of crap like that, I guess. So yeah, I'd like to get something like that eventually, but I'll wait till they perfect the cheap model. But yeah, it's nice to have. But you got to do all the other stuff right too. You got to get the right lights. And you got to figure out how to do it all and get it all right. And then I don't even frankly, I'm just not interested enough in anything to say, oh, yeah, let's make a throw something in a puddle and watch the water ripple. So I don't know what Scientific Lee needs a high-speed camera for, but whatever. I'm probably not going to bother even to find out. I just probably don't care too much. So, I mean, this PBS space-time thing is just so funny because their videos have gotten so just way past just silly. And our antimatter mirrored time-reversed universe. I mean, it's just such silly gibberish. Time-reversed universe. Antimatter. Again, just a silly concept. There's no, it's like the anti-force. It's baby talk. So anyway, it is all quite depressing. Even 60 symbols. Where is the edge of space? I mean, oh yeah, like you have a whole pile of data about that. So it's perfect for attempting to do some deductions because we have so much evidence. That yes, it's time to start drawing conclusions about the end of the universe. It's just so such a waste of time. Alright, so I guess I've complained enough. So we'll call it a video because there doesn't appear to be anything else to deal with, and yeah, I could just go on about some subject, but there's nothing urgent. My little fix for the Linux thing is working out quite well so far, so everything seems to be functioning, and so I will make some Linux videos about different programs that I'm using and find useful, like the one I'm using right now. Yeah. So anyway, till the next time and such. Alright, I'm back just because I can do that. I can just pause, which is just such a great feature, but I still haven't figured out how to maximize its utility. The old days when I used to just make like walk and talk videos, it really would have been handy just to be able to pause, but maybe it would have been. I don't know. It's just it's so nice to have as a feature. Not having to stitch videos together. It's just such a hassle. But yeah, I haven't figured out how to really maximize its I have to just try deliberately. I'll just start a video early in the day and just see if I can keep it from failing, and just see if I can do it in little chunks. So that'll be for the next time or something. So I could pause this and wait for some more comments. That one might have been I don't know, might work. See, but then the risk is, no, this doesn't really crash. I mean, it should be okay. I just should see if I can get away with it. So I should try it and see if I can get away with it. You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, something like that. But nothing ventured, you know, you don't lose any money that way. So, yeah, it's safer not to do any venturing. Anyway, till the next time. Pretty sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, that, you know, I could talk about that. Thou art that guy. You know, people who know me from the Amendum channel. You know, just got into all that wooey stuff. He did a video, you know, and you know, about some physics, and I was saying, oh, I wonder what channel I should do a response on, because it really is just garbage philosophy. So I guess I should do it on the Amendum channel. But I mean, it's just so, it's a strange. You know, but just these wooey people who just can't deal with the fact that it's a deterministic mechanical universe. You have been programmed by your environment. It's just a fact. The people you've known, the events you crashed into, the stuff that has happened to you, it has defined you. You know, you are what has happened to you. There's no other mysterious way. You didn't source the universe, or there wasn't any aliens who injected you with personality. I mean, whatever you have, you got from the world that fed you, and they can't deal with that. Well, they just don't like to be robots. Ooh, I don't want to be a robot. Well, tough. That's what you are, assholes. Anyway, till the next time.